Hello. I would like to talk about a controversial section of Scripture, Romans chapter 7, verses 14 through 25. And I want to just tell you guys my view and what I hold to and why I hold to it. First of all, just what the controversy is there's one main view that says that Paul was a Christian, talking about how he struggles with sin. The other main view is that Paul was talking about himself before his conversion to Christianity. And so real quickly, what I believe is that Paul was an apostle, pinning this down, but he was talking about his pre-converted state before he was a Christian. So, why do I hold this view? I want to give you three main reasons. First is structurally, his structural order, the way that he's putting everything down and building on it, his arguments, his points, the way that he's doing it in his structure. Secondly is contextually, what is he saying? Yes, in his structure, but what is he saying contextually, in the context? What is his points? What is the flow? What is it being centered on? So contextually, and thirdly, theologically. I have a theological position that we'll get to. That will probably be my third video, as I believe I only have like 10 minutes per video. So first is structurally. Now I realize that I'm speaking to a broad audience. This is going to be uploaded on YouTube. So different people with different theological views, but for those who understand and believe in the sovereignty of God, that God is totally sovereign over everything, including but not limited to salvation. If you had one passage of scripture, you would go to, most likely, Romans chapter 9. This is the same author, Paul, the same book. And I just want to point out the structure here and show you how it's identical to Romans chapter 7 in our controversial section. So first, Romans chapter 9, let's look at this structure that he's doing here. I'll just go to verse 11. Though they were not yet born and had done anything, either good or bad, in order that God's purpose of election might continue, not because of works, but because of him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Now, real quickly, this statement here, what he's saying here, he anticipates that his audience is going to have a strong objection to this. He anticipates that there are going to be misunderstandings based on what he just said. So then, as you guys know, he asked a rhetorical question. What shall we say then? Is there injustice on God's part? Okay, the rhetorical question. And he says, by no means. Strong denial. Then he goes on and uses this word for, connecting what he has just said to what he's about to say. For, he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. And he goes on and on and on and on. Now, how does this relate? Although it's a different topic, the structure definitely, you can look at Romans chapter 7 in our controversial section and see how it's identical. And but let me just backtrack to Romans chapter 5 verse 20, because I believe this is where this whole thing starts. And it says in chapter 5, Romans 5:20, now the law came in to increase the trespass, but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more. Now, he's going to do the same exact structure that he did in Romans chapter 9. He's going to do it in Romans chapter 6, verse 1, asking the rhetorical question, doing the same thing. Again, in Romans chapter 6, verse 15, this is the second one. Romans chapter 7, verse 7, the third one. And then our controversial section, Romans chapter 7, verse 13. Now, I want you guys to notice what he is talking about in verses 7 through 12. The reason for that is because in the same way of Romans chapter 9 and what he was saying prior to verse 14, where he asked a rhetorical question in Romans chapter 9, he's saying things that his audience is going to misunderstand. Okay, this is the same thing that's going on here in Romans chapter 7, verses 7 through 12. He's saying things that the audience is going to misunderstand. Okay, so that's why he asked this rhetorical question in verse 13. Did that which is good. He's talking about the law of Moses, the law of God, the 613 laws and commandments, the law that promised him life in verse 10, right? Did that which is good, then bring death to me. Did that which is good, then bring death to me. He says the same three words, by no means. Okay, same structure. And he does this as I showed before, but we're not going to get time to look into all that. By no means. And he explains it was sin. But look at this next verse. For, again, that three-letter word for. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am of the flesh, sold under sin. And then, of course, he goes on in our controversial section here. But firstly, I want you guys to notice the structure. In Romans chapter 9, if he were to start talking about any number of things regarding salvation, but not what he had just addressed that his audience was going to misunderstand, then he would be scattered brain. He would be transitioning into something that he's not. The rhetorical question has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with. So again, this rhetorical question has everything to do with what he has just been saying, which is why he asked the rhetorical question. So if he answers it saying, well, I am of the flesh, sold under sin, let me talk to you about how I struggle with sin, you have to understand that's a entirely different topic than what he has been saying, not only just in this section right here, verses 7 on, but before that. He has never hinted in this whole chapter about struggling with sin. That's not even in a hint of what he's saying or talking about. So you have to say, when he asked this question in Romans chapter 7 verse 13, and then he answers it, if you say that he's a Christian, you have to say that he's now talking about something different, and you have to say that his structure is entirely different than all these other structural arguments and points that he's doing here. So that's it for this video on the structure. The second one I want to explain is the context, and I'll do that in my next video here. The context of what he's saying is the second reason why I cannot go with the belief that Paul is a Christian and this is the way that the Christians live. So we'll look at that.